Apologies, we're supposed to start at 6 p.m., but we had an issue, technical issue, and we couldn't get going. And now we are ready. The only thing is we will only do the show for 1 hour, so we'll finish as usual at 8 p.m. rather than 2 hours. So apologies for the delay and issues that we had to deal with. So, dear listeners, to let you know, this is the spiritual discussion program on Bless Radio. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic tonight is changing for the better. Changing for the better. If you want to join, if you want to join the discussion and have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, and use WhatsApp. Or oh, okay, we are back again, listeners. So, I was reading about the Grail message. The Grail message is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic that we are discussing tonight is changing for the better, or change for the better. I think I've written in both ways. Changing for the better. And if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And again, I want to apologize for the delay in our starting our show tonight. We were 1 hour late, and we'll only do the show for 1 hour as well. So from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. tonight. And apologies for that. We had some technical issues. Right, Gregory. I'm not going to even bother to go to the dictionary about what are the words changing for the better. I think they're very, very straightforward. So let's leave that out. Let's talk about, think about how the world is. And what I mean by that is, there are things in this world that are, you could say, we know are unarguably correct. Let me give an example. Smoking is harmful. We all know that. Over or under eating, it's harmful. But despite that, despite knowing that, people continue with this bad habit. Maybe habit may not be the correct word some cases, because there might be some addiction. And the issue is, people find this hard to change for the better, meaning to give up this addiction. Well, not everybody. Some people find this very hard. Others, they make a decision and they just can give up, and they don't fail, and they keep to that decision without fail. So the big question is, Gregory, how is it that we know something is bad or harmful, and yet we still we do it? And yeah.
Well, you said we know something. The degree of knowledge varies from one individual to another. If that individual knows to that degree that the reverse effect on himself or herself will be immediate, maybe there will be careful consideration on pursuing a course which is detrimental to the individual. So the how is dependent on the individual, on the personal conviction that that individual has acquired. Some of this conviction may come in deeds, some may in their thoughts, some in their intuition. immediately they move away from it. Sadly, many who are addicted to something, they find it very difficult to move away from it because that addiction has, established itself in their personality, maybe in their body chemicals, or has been tuned to it, even their thinking, and to some extent in their intuitions. So this is what makes it very difficult for some to move away from that which they sense could be harmful. For some, they don't even bother at all. But that is understandable because the human personality has the free will to determine whether they wish or they do not wish to go along a certain direction.
Thank you very much for this answer, Gregory. In my head, I'm thinking also, what about the willpower? Because, Jesus told us the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So it's like you have, if I equate this will to the spirit, there is and we also say where there's a will, there's a way. Sorry, I'm mixing up now. So Jesus said, when the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So there's somehow, how can I say, a difference between your will and it manifesting in this physical world, So is there something there? I mean, you mentioned about, our chemicals. I must admit, I didn't hear it 100%, but so that there's some process, let's say, where the will, takes effect, you could say, in this physical world, and sometime it is stopped. So what is it that is stopping it?
As is well known, I may not say it's well known, that will which you are referring to is that of the spirit, which expresses itself in one's intuitions. That being the case, in the implementation of that will, here on earth, because of the density, it takes a longer time for it to implement, similar to what you have when you have thunder and lightning. When you have the thunder and the lightning, they happen at the same time, but you yourself, you will see the lightning first, and then as the sound travels to you, it comes a few seconds later. So that is a contributory factor in the will and the deed. That is, if indeed that will flares up from within the spirit. But what you find is that the individual is so spiritually indolent that most of the decisions in spirit are very weak. They are lukewarm. And as a matter of fact, one may find that the deeds itself start having a strong influence on one's thoughts. And one's thoughts start having a strong influence on one's spirit, such that even the spirit, as it's sinking, takes those wrong impressions which through one's thoughts have been hammered into it. Again, what you find is that many a person have not examined rigorously enough to understand the effects of some of these activities, if only they've examined rigorously enough in different scenarios, then in that case, many things they will just leave behind. They won't even go in there. But that is not the case. So you find they just accept, okay, I haven't had the reciprocal activity yet, so why should I bother? Okay, it's good enough for me. I enjoy it. Again, that is the free will.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this explanation. You can see that we are, like Jesus said, what spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So there are these weaknesses, and if you're lukewarm, it means you haven't really, you're not following up on what you have said you decided to do. So your will cannot manifest because of the, because you're not firm, or as we have read it when we read the forward of the Grail message, which is titled "For Your Guidance." You don't have the conviction. You're not. It's like you're not really sure. So it makes sense. There's, let's say, people have excuses or reasons why they don't do certain things. They say they want to do something, but they come up with excuses. Oh, I haven't got time, or whatever it is. So you can see these things, obstructions come up, and we fall into the obstruction rather than follow through. So yes, thank you for that explanation. Now, another thing, Gregory, is that in today's world, there's supposed to be more and more knowledge available, and we have internet and so many things giving us easy access, and yet we see the problems in this world increasing in number and even getting worse. For example, this how can I say, pattern, basically it's called child obesity, which, let's say, was not really known many, let's say, I don't know, 30 years ago maybe, and in the past before that, and yet it is becoming, maybe it's more in the Western world, but it's a big problem. So it's funny, we live in this modern world that there's more, how can I say, availability of knowledge or information maybe, and yet the problems we face, they're getting worse, and firstly they're increasing in number, and then the things are happening worse than, let's say, what has been experienced in the past. So again, why is that?
You yourself mentioned there's an abundance of knowledge. That abundance of knowledge, is that abundance in accordance with the laws of nature? You can have an abundance of rubbish, which is completely inconsistent with the laws of nature or the laws of creation. It is that perspective, it is that framework that makes it real, consistent knowledge, which is useful to the individual here or hereafter. So an individual who has imbibed a lot of things which are completely inconsistent with the laws of nature or of creation, that individual has not learned anything, cannot make use of that which it itself does not yet have. That means it cannot navigate his paths or her paths in accordance with the laws through which it came into existence. That is the key thing. That is the scenario where things are no more arbitrary. Else, with the so-called abundance of knowledge, those ones which are not consistent with the laws of nature or the laws of creation, those ones are arbitrary. Because in that scenario where you have arbitrary behavior, anything can happen. And that is not real knowledge. That is not wisdom which has been woven into creation, into the laws of nature.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this answer and the picture you're showing to us. Yes, just because there's so much quantity of some information or knowledge doesn't mean they're useful or helpful. Again, it reminds me of what we read every week from For Your Guidance, is weigh and examine. So whatever you come across, you need to weigh and examine, not just see and just say, oh yes, there's something, because somebody's put it there. Maybe some scientists or some people have put it there who have done the research already. So you can't take things for granted or assume something is, let's say, helpful just because it's out there. So that's like a warning for us. Now, yes, Gregory, another thing about, let's say, some things may be harder. I'm again talking about bad habits and addiction and things. So some things, Gregory, may be harder to give up. I'm talking about the bad habits or harmful habits. For example, gambling, smoking, or sugar, whatever it is in, and other things, even sexual, let's say, excessive activity, whatever that might be, So let's call these things vices. So question on that is, are the vices something deeper embedded within us if we are into that, let's say? And so that is why it is harder to give up. And other things may be easier to give up because they are not so deeply embedded. So is there something about, let's say, these vices that makes them so hard to get out of, let's say?
It all depends on the degree in which that individual has internalized these so-called vices. If they have been internalized in not so deep a degree, then it is easier to throw them away. If they have been internalized in deeds, if they have been internalized in our thought processes, if they have been internalized in our intuitive processes, so one can already see that it's a threefold challenge for the individual. A threefold challenge because the first one, which is in deeds, in which the body has been coerced to respond to these stimuli. The second part, which is even greater, which is the way the individual thinks, his thought processes have been aligned with these vices. So it becomes extremely difficult and challenging to do away with them. And the last bit, which is the most challenging, is in one's intuitions. If it has so well impressed on one's intuitions, then you'll find that each step becomes one of the greatest challenges. And that is why you find some people in which these vices have not been so very strongly internalized are able to do away with them, whereas others who have been so much internalized it, whilst here on it, they are hooked up to it, even when they cross over, because these vices have bordered on their intuition. That also clouds the purity of their intuition. And that has a very strong influence for in the beyond, outside that which is earthly. They walk with the intuition, not in their thoughts, because they don't have the physical body. And because they walk with their intuition, you then find that only that which is narrow, only that which is homogeneous in their intuitions, only that will they pursue. So if the idea of smoking has embedded itself, has endeared towards their intuition, then they follow it. If it is that of eating ravenously like animals, then they follow it. Even carelessness is carried over. And that is why it is quite important to weigh and examine whatever the individual does. It should not be taken for granted and saying, okay, no worries, I will change. No. The likelihood is that the individual will carry those same weaknesses when it departs this earth to the beyond. And therefore, you will find, even in the beyond, many still consider it to be far away. There are many who in their activities are earthbound. They are earthbound means they are unable to sever themselves and move away from the earthly surrounding. For in their activities, they are so geared to that which is earthly, which they wish to enjoy, or maybe they have spun threads, these threads which hold them down. So these things are very serious.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. You have talked about, the three, you could say, levels of our activity, the spiritual volition, the intuitive volition, the thoughts, and the physical actions. And so it's you could say, a battle when we are embedded in a vice or whatever activity it is. We're working on all these three levels, and we may not be aware of that. You're thinking, oh, it's smoking, it's just a physical thing. Well, that's how it looks on the surface. And as you say, when you pass on, you will discover, although there's nothing physical there, but you still have that craving for the cigarette or whatever smoking that you've been doing. So that might be a shock. But that's how it is, because who knows what happens in the beyond. In the world we live today, it's like we don't even know it exists, and yet there is this world in the beyond. So our so-called knowledge that we have, it seems to be very, very limited, or understanding, very limited, and is about our life and you would say this is the most important thing to know about your life. So thank you for that. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Aprushing. If you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we are discussing tonight is changing for the better. Changing for the better. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. We are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show tonight, which is changing for the better. And after the show, you can listen to a recording of this show again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the same words in the search box, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space, Grail message, space, changing for the better. And of course, you can listen to our previous radio shows, the recordings of those previous radio shows, also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, just to continue about these bad habits or vices. Why is it, Gregory, we are attracted to these harmful habits or areas? What is it that makes them attractive for something that is even harmful?
For others, it is harmful, or others see it as harmful, but the individual who are attracted to that which you yourself have described as harmful, they themselves may not perceive it that way. And one must know that there is the attraction of that which is homogeneous. So you find that the individual is attracted, or the individual attracts that which is homogeneous to itself, because that's what makes it tick. So the question should not be why, because the individual makes the decision. The individual decides the paths it wishes to follow, because it is granted the free will. And as the individual decides on the path, it is that path that it has to follow. That decision may be in deeds, That decision may be in thoughts. That decision may be in one's intuition. As one has laid the path, that is the path the individual must follow here on earth or hereafter. If that individual hasn't put in enough effort to throw away the vices, then the reciprocal activities on that which it has decided on in the past will still have an effect on it. And that effect, because of these returns, is more of an attraction. If, however, the individual has made enough efforts to move away from such, then those efforts will become like a barrier, a buffer, such that when the reciprocal activities return, fully laden, they will be deflected away from the individual because the individual doesn't resonate anymore with such. In that case, here on earth, it can move in such a way that to be of benefit to it, or even hereafter. If, however, that is not the case, then the full reciprocal activities will strike the individual. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Gregory, but I didn't realize I was on mute. I'm sorry. So, yes, Gregory, what I was saying is that um, at the end of the day, everything that happens to us is our own doing. We bring things to ourselves, yet we may not be aware of this. That's, you know, let's say the big issue here. So, you know, we have to, let's say, we are looking for answers to the problems of life or mysteries of life, and yes, the answers are there. That's the good news. But we need to work, let's say, with the tools that we have at our hands to come to to seek these answers. One of them you've mentioned many times, Gregory, is this intuition. So, which most of the time we are not using. So that's not a surprise that we fall into traps and troubles. So that is one of the things we are saying, changing for the better. So, Gregory, what should be our goal? Build a better world? What's the goal for us human beings? Yeah.
Well, that is a very profound question. What would be the goal? To grasp aright what the goal is, one must have a picture of what the goal of life is, even here on earth, or its goal in nature or in creation. When the individual is born as a child, the individual is dependent. Gradually, as it grows, it becomes independent whilst it's acquiring experience or experiences here on earth. And once it has acquired enough, it's able to use that experience to guide others, such that those who come after the individual are able to proceed without having to reinvent the wheel. That is the very brief picture which occurs to the individual as a child and becomes an adult. If one abstracts that particular scenario, one can also understand that the individual, which individual is of body and spirit, that which is of spirit, in its initial state, it was unconscious spirit germ. The need is there to become conscious of its existence and subsequently becomes self-conscious. That means those talents which have been sown in it have come to maturity. In that state, it is able to become a useful tool in nature, in creation, and here on earth in particular, is able to become a useful tool to others who, like him, are striving to become self-conscious and become also useful in creation. So the goal of the individual must be to become self-conscious and also be of help to others. If, however, it doesn't do that, then you will find that its activities will become arbitrary. Why? Because it doesn't know why it has even come into existence. The individual has awakened here on earth in order to gather experiences in this earth-like environment or in here on earth, to gather experiences in order to mature. Without that, it's unable to guide others who subsequently may have to come here to the earth in order to gather experiences. So it becomes very simple. He or she who receives of the guidance, who receives of the blessing in order to mature, must also be in the position to make use of this guidance, to make use of these blessings, first for itself, and also to extend it to others, such that they themselves will mature. What is essence to this is that he who receives must make use of it and pass it on to others, just like you have in music, where the musician is able to pick up the vibrations and put together a piece of music which is pleasurable to many. In that case, that musician has received, has made use of it, and has passed it on in one form or the other. The individual must also understand that it is not alone, just as the path has been prepared, the substances which it needs in order to mature have been made available. That means the table has already been set so that he can experience. He himself or herself must participate in setting the table for others, just like you have in music. So with that, the individual becomes useful not only to himself or herself, but also useful or becomes a useful tool in nature, in creation. That is the task of the individual.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this picture you painted for us of the, how you could say, our goal and purpose of our life, and it's of development, you can call it. And it is not only about us, as you could say, our favorite phrase, all for one and one for all. It's not about one person trying to get from A to Z. It's also the other people that happen to be there. They also want to go to A to Z. And so we can all help each other in that journey. And the earth is the place where we, well, one place, you could say, we are together. And it is a great opportunity for each of us to grow from each other. Excuse me. Now, Gregory, we're talking about changing for the better. So we talked about the goal, but then what about the attitude? You see a child is very, how can I say, wants to learn. So what about us when we get to adult? Is it still learning? What sort of attitude we are supposed to have? We have experiences, you can call them good or bad. When it's bad, you wonder why it's happened. And you're thinking, oh, what I've done wrong. So are we meant to learn and reflect, from our past? So the question is, what about our attitude? What attitude we are supposed to have?
Many a time when an individual is undergoing certain experiences, those experiences which it classifies as pleasurable, those are the ones it holds on to. Whereas those other experiences it classifies or categorizes as not pleasurable, it questions. But it should not be one-sided. You should question everything. You should examine everything. You should weigh everything. That which is pleasurable and that which, in quotes, is not pleasurable. Before long, if it continues along such a line, it will subsequently change its attitude. It will then find that both are helpful. Else, if he holds on only to that which is, in quotes, pleasurable because of its current attitude, it will not focus to do the examination and the weighing of the so-called unpleasurable ones. And it cannot predict what the future, what the returns may be, or what the challenges should be in the future. Therefore, it needs to live in the present, to examine everything impartially, must examine everything from a neutral standpoint. Only then, in the weighing and in the examination, the weighing in deeds, the weighing and examination in deeds, the weighing and examination in thoughts, and above all, very rigorously, the weighing and examination in one's intuition. Only then will it take that which it needs in order to internalize it and it become useful, a useful tool. It will become of value in deeds, of value in thoughts, and of value in spirit, such that it's able to a large extent navigate its path here on earth or hereafter. Only when the individual examines and weighs rigorously in these three different categories, only then will it mature and mature in accordance with the laws of nature, with the laws of creation that made it possible for these experiences to come its way.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this answer. There's a lot there, and we're having to squeeze our show, 2-hour show, into a 1-hour show tonight. So we're packing a lot in, and in following that, I now want to share some reflections from my colleague Harriet, who contributes to the show with questions and even answers. So these are her reflections on the topic of changing for the better. Changing for the better. Whose? Yours, theirs, ours, or his? Individually, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, or all together? Can they be separated? If so, would this not cause a conflict? And if so, how would this manifest? If, say, for example, the mind were willing, but the flesh was weak, what then happens to the spirit? Or if the spirit were willing, but the mind was stronger, what then happens to the flesh? Surely at times would not chaos be the order of the day? And if so, how would or could such a situation be resolved? Would, for example, checking one's blood type to find which foods benefit or detract from good health physically help to bring peace of mind via calmed emotions? One must practice some kind of regime, first to calm the emotions, while running around mindlessly, satiating oneself in the physical, to fill the void and still the voice of spirit within. And we can see computations of the above could quite literally drive one to distraction, sleepless nights, and fast moronic days, to say the least. Yes. Beginning at the beginning, one could truthfully say that going on from the point of view of the damage caused by living a life of separation, quite literally, with a quote to a well-known saying, the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing, becoming a perpetual state of existence. Perhaps starting with one's blood could be an ideal way forward when creating a bridge for uniting all elements of self, desiring of changes for the better, to effectively build a harmonious foundation. Yes. So these are reflections from my colleague Harriet about changing for the better. And she said a lot there. So maybe listeners, you can replay the recording to hear that a bit again. Okay. Gregory, I don't think we have more time to talk. Let me see. Can I come up with one more question? Yes. We were talking, Gregory, here about practices. Because as you've already mentioned, there are three levels that we act on: the thought, the intuition, the thoughts, and the physical actions. And I was wondering if there's any practice we should be adopting or following, to bring harmony, as the lady Harriet has mentioned here, to work in harmony, effectively, so that we are changing for the better on all fronts, not, getting stuck in one level. How can we go forward, in the most effective way?
Very simply, to allow one's thoughts to align to one's deeds and allow one's intuition to align with one's thoughts. When there is that alignment, then there is harmony. If, however, there is no alignment in which your thoughts are going in a different direction and your deeds are in a different direction, then there's no harmony. In fact, they may be opposing themselves. If, however, there's that practice to say what you mean and mean what you say, if there's that practice to heed your word, if there's that practice to keep the heart of your thoughts pure, then before too long, the individual outlook will change.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for that. Dear listeners, we've come to the end of our show tonight on the topic of changing for the better, or change for the better. I would now like to read from the foreword of the Grail message, which is titled For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and star. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Abtrushin. Dear listeners, if you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Just wishing listeners a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. We'll be back hopefully on time next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. Apologies for our delayed start at 7 p.m. We squeezed our show into 1 hour. Hope you enjoyed that. So as I say, we'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another topic.